Observe the flow of life. For most, it feels like a mighty and unpredictable river. We let ourselves be carried away by its currents, circumstances, the opinions of others, our own momentary impulses. We spend our days reacting, adapting, surviving. We become experts at floating adrift, hoping that the current, by sheer chance, will lead us to a good harbor. But from time to time, we see someone who seems to navigate that same river in a radically different way. They don't fight the current with fury, but they aren't swept away either. They move with a serene intention. They seem to have an invisible rudder, an internal force that allows them to choose their direction, to navigate the whirlpools of adversity, and to advance with a calmness and determination that astonish and at times intimidate us. That silent force, that inner rudder, is the will. We have been taught to associate the will with exhausting effort, with the image of gritting our teeth and fighting against the world. We see it as an act of brute force, a muscle that tenses, fatigues, and finally gives up. And since our experience with it is one of struggle and exhaustion, we learn to use it as little as possible. But the true will is not a shout. It is a constant whisper. It is not the explosion of a moment, but the serene and continuous pressure of a tide. It is the silent power to choose, to decide, and above all, to sustain that decision over time, no matter which winds blow against it. It is the difference between a firework, which dazzles and disappears, and a star, which burns with a silent constancy for millennia. This is a journey to awaken that force within you, a journey to stop being the castaway and become the captain. We will explore the nature of the will, not as a mystical gift reserved for a few, but as a faculty of the mind that can be understood, trained, and strengthened like any other muscle. You will learn to manage your energy, to defeat the thieves of your determination, doubt, distraction, impulse, and to build systems in your life that make discipline finally feel natural and effortless. The power to forge your destiny does not reside in external circumstances. It resides in the calm decision to take the helm. The force has always been there. It's time to learn how to use it. If you are determined to forge your will and to take the helm of your life, we invite you to join this journey. Like this video if you feel the call to awaken your power, and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. Chapter 1. The Invisible Muscle. What is willpower really? To begin our journey toward inner mastery, we must first draw an accurate map of the terrain. And at the center of this terrain stands a faculty as powerful as it is misunderstood: the will. The term we commonly use, willpower, has done us a great disservice. The word power or force evokes images of struggle, tension, of grueling effort. We think of the will as the act of gritting our teeth and pushing an immense boulder uphill. And since this experience is inherently unpleasant and exhausting, it is no wonder that most of us feel that our willpower is weak or that it constantly fails us. We blame our lack of strength without realizing that the problem lies in our fundamental understanding of the concept. The will, in its essence, is not brute force. It is a faculty of immense elegance and precision. To see it clearly, we must first distinguish it from two other inner forces with which we often confuse it: desire and impulse. These three forces, desire, impulse, and will, dictate almost all our actions, but they come from very different places in our consciousness. Desire, the blowing wind. Desire is the most passive of the three forces. It is simply wanting something. It is the attraction we feel toward a possible pleasure or the aversion we feel toward a possible pain. Desire is like the wind. It simply happens. You do not choose it. One day you wake up with the desire to travel, another day with the desire to eat something sweet, another with the desire to learn a new skill. The wind of desire can be a gentle breeze or a hurricane. It can be constant or change direction at any moment. And most importantly, it is often contradictory. You can intensely desire to have a healthy and fit body, and at the same moment, desire with the same intensity to eat an entire box of cookies. You can desire the security of a stable job and, at the same time, long for the freedom of starting your own business. To live at the mercy of desire is to be a weather vane, spinning aimlessly with each new gust. The mistake many of us make is to confuse an intense desire with a strong will. Someone might say, "I have an iron will to be rich," when in reality what they have is a very strong desire to be rich. But desire alone does not move the ship. It simply blows on the sails. Impulse, the unconscious reflex. Impulse is a reactive force. It is the immediate and often unconscious response to a stimulus, whether internal or external. Impulse is like a patellar reflex. A stimulus, the doctor's hammer, hits a sensitive spot, and the reaction, the kick, is instantaneous and automatic. Our daily life is full of these psychic reflexes. The phone vibrates in our pocket, stimulus, and the impulse to pick it up is almost irresistible. We feel criticized in a conversation, stimulus, and the impulse to become defensive is immediate. We face a difficult and boring task, stimulus, and the impulse to procrastinate by opening a social network is overwhelming. Impulse is the language of our habits, our addictions, and our most primal emotional reactions. It is fast, powerful, and operates from a place that is not conscious. When we act on impulse, we often feel like victims, as if we had no choice. The phrase, "I couldn't help it," is the anthem of impulse. To live at the mercy of impulse is to be a ship without a captain, reacting to every wave and every current without a clear direction. The will, the ship's rudder. If desire is the wind and impulse is the current, the will is the rudder. It is the only one of the three forces that is truly active and conscious. The will is the faculty of deliberate and sustained choice. It is the CEO of the mind, the captain on the command bridge. The function of the will is not necessarily to eliminate the wind of desire or the force of the current of impulse. Its function is to use and, at times, override these forces to keep the ship on the course the captain has chosen. The will has three fundamental characteristics. It is deliberate. It involves a conscious pause between stimulus and response. It is the ability to observe desires and impulses without identifying with them, and then to make a decision. It is directive. Once the decision is made, the will directs the mind's resources. It focuses attention, mobilizes energy, and coordinates action toward the chosen goal. It is sustained. This is perhaps its most important quality. The will is not a single act. It is the ability to maintain the decision over time, despite the obstacles, distractions, and contradictory desires that will inevitably arise. The true power of the will is revealed in the small choices. It is the ability to feel the intense desire to eat the cake, but to choose to eat the fruit. It is to feel the overwhelming impulse to check the phone, but to choose to maintain focus on the task. It is to feel the desire to abandon a difficult project, but to choose to persevere one more day. To illustrate, let's imagine a practical scenario. An entrepreneur, let's call her Anna, is at home at night. She knows she must work on the business plan that is crucial for her company's future. At this moment, the three forces come into play. Desire blows from multiple directions. There is a long-term desire to have a successful business, but there is also a short-term, much more intense desire to relax and watch a series on Netflix. Impulse appears. Her phone, which she has left on the table, vibrates with a notification. The impulse to pick it up is immediate, an automatic reaction to soothe the micro-anxiety of curiosity. This is where the will intervenes. Anna feels the pull of the series. She feels the almost electric impulse to pick up the phone. Her reactive self wants to give in, but the captain of her mind takes the helm. She pauses. She acknowledges the desire to relax. She acknowledges the impulse of distraction, and then she makes a deliberate choice. She doesn't fight. She simply chooses. Her first act of will is physical. She gets up, takes the phone, and puts it in airplane mode in another room. She has eliminated the stimulus. Her second act of will is mental. She acknowledges the desire to watch the series and tells herself, "I'll watch an episode when I finish this section of the plan." She doesn't deny the desire. She postpones it and uses it as a reward. Her third act of will is directive. She opens the computer, opens the business plan document, and directs all her attention to the first sentence. Anna has not eliminated her desires or her impulses. She has managed them. She has used the silent force of her will to navigate between them and keep her ship on the course she has consciously chosen. That, and not a superhuman effort, is the true essence of the will. Practice. The first diagnosis of your invisible muscle. To strengthen this muscle, we must first become aware of how we are using or not using it in our daily lives. Exercise 1. The Journal of the Three Forces. For a single day, from morning to night, become an impartial observer of your own inner universe. Carry a notebook with you or use a note on your phone and divide it into 3 sections. Section 1. Desires. Write down the contradictory desires you feel throughout the day. I wanted to get up early to exercise, but I also wanted to stay in bed. I wanted to save money, but I also wanted to buy that new gadget. Section 2. Impulses. Write down the reactive actions you took almost without thinking. I checked Instagram while waiting in line for coffee. I interrupted my colleague in the meeting because I disagreed. I ate without being hungry, just out of boredom. Section 3. Acts of will. Write down every time you made a conscious and deliberate choice, especially if it went against a short-term desire or an impulse. I felt the impulse to complain, but I chose to remain silent. I wanted to postpone the difficult call, but I made it anyway. I chose to turn off the TV and read a book. At the end of the day, review your journal. Do not judge yourself. Simply observe. Which force governs most of your day? This exercise will give you an honest diagnosis of your current state. Exercise 2. Identifying your main willpower leak. Look at your journal, especially the section on impulses and conflicting desires. Where does most of your volitional energy seem to be leaking? Is it in the fight against digital distraction, in resisting food temptations, in forcing yourself to do a job you don't like, in controlling your tongue in difficult conversations? Identifying your main battlefield is the first step to developing a smarter strategy instead of just trying to fight harder. The will is not the force with which you push the river. It is the clarity with which you hold the rudder. It is not your ability to fight against the wind. It is your ability to choose a destination and adjust the sails to reach it. The first step to strengthening this invisible muscle is not effort. It is awareness. Chapter 2. The 3 faces of the will: desire, decision, and action. The will is not a monolith, a single, indivisible piece of power. It is a dynamic process, a river that flows through 3 distinct landscapes before reaching the ocean of manifested reality. For an architect, understanding these 3 phases is like understanding the blueprints, the foundation, and the construction of a building. To ignore any of them is to invite disaster. Many of us fail in our resolutions not for lack of a strong will, but because we are experts in one of the phases and ignorant in the other 2. There are dreamers full of desires who never make a decision. There are decision makers who are paralyzed when it's time to act. And there are people of action who move without a clear desire, exhausting themselves in directionless movement. Mastery of the will lies in the ability to navigate fluidly through the 3 faces of its power: desire, decision, and action. The first face, desire. The architecture of the soul. Every act of will begins with a spark, an image, a feeling, a longing. This is the realm of desire. Desire is the primordial energy, the raw fuel of the will. It is neither good nor bad, it simply is. It is the raw material from which destinies are built. The problem with desire is that it rarely presents itself in an orderly fashion. Our psyche is a battlefield of contradictory desires. We want the freedom of the entrepreneur, but also the security of the employee. We want the vitality of a healthy body, but also the immediate pleasure of junk food. We want a deep and connected relationship, but also the comfort of isolation and independence. The first act of the conscious will is not to create a desire, but to choose a desire. It is to act as the curator of a museum, examining all the works hanging on the walls of your mind and deciding which of them deserves to be placed in the center of the room, under the main spotlight. This choice requires radical introspection. It requires you to ask, of all these winds that are blowing, which comes from the deep ocean of my true self, and which is just a superficial breeze generated by fear, envy, or the expectations of others. A desire born of the ego is usually comparative and reactive. I want that car because my neighbor has a better one. I want that position to prove to my old boss that he was wrong. A desire born of the soul, in contrast, has a quality of internal resonance. It feels expansive, energizing, and often a little frightening. It is not comparative. It is a unique expression of your own potential. The first step to forging a will of steel is therefore to have the clarity to know what you really desire, beyond the noise of expectations. It is to define the what, and above all, the why. The why is the emotional anchor of your desire. If your desire is to earn $1 million, that is a hollow goal. If your why is to earn $1 million, to have the freedom to dedicate my life to my art and take care of my family, that is a desire with a soul. It is a desire worth fighting for. The second phase, decision, the edge of the sword. Once you have chosen and clarified your desire, you arrive at the most crucial and often most difficult moment of the process, the decision. The word decision comes from the Latin decidere, which means to cut off. This origin reveals the true nature of a powerful decision. It is not a preference. It is not a good idea. It is not a wish. A true decision is an act of cutting off all other possibilities. It is the act of burning the ship so that retreat is no longer an option. It is a total and absolute commitment to the path you have chosen. Chronic indecision is one of the most debilitating diseases of the will. Every time we remain in ambiguity, in the maybe this, maybe that, we let our psychic energy leak in 1,000 different directions. We are like an army trying to fight on 10 fronts at once. We are doomed to defeat. A true decision channels all that scattered energy into a single powerful laser beam. The moment you make a real decision, something changes in the universe. Not just in the outer universe, but more importantly, in your inner universe. Your subconscious mind, which until that moment was confused by your contradictory desires, finally receives a clear and unequivocal order. And as we have learned, once it receives a clear order, it mobilizes all its resources to fulfill it. The act of deciding is frightening because it involves a loss. By choosing A, you must give up B, C, and D. And our mind often wants to have it all. But it is precisely in this act of voluntary renunciation that the power lies. It is the sacrifice of lesser possibilities for the realization of a greater one. When you make a real decision, you feel a shift. You feel a mixture of fear for the commitment and a deep relief. The relief comes from having ended the civil war inside you. The anxiety of indecision vanishes and is replaced by the calm and clarity of a single path. The third phase, action. The will in motion. Desire is the blueprint. Decision is the cornerstone. But action is the construction of the building. This is the bridge between the invisible world of intention and the visible world of results, and it is on this bridge that most dreams collapse. Action is the will manifested in time, and it has two essential components, like the two wings of a bird. Without both, there is no flight. The first wing is initiative. It is the energy to take the first step. It is the ability to overcome inertia, procrastination, that saboteur that whispers to us, better tomorrow. Initiative is often the hardest part because it requires the greatest amount of activation energy. It's like a rocket that needs most of its fuel just to lift off the launch pad. Once in orbit, movement is easier. The second wing, and the one that truly forges destinies, is perseverance. It is sustained will. It is the ability to keep taking one step and another, long after the initial excitement of the decision has faded. It is the discipline of showing up to work on your dream even on the days you don't feel like it, on the days you are assailed by doubts, on the days the results are not yet visible. Perseverance is the quality that separates professionals from amateurs, masters from beginners. Perseverance is not an act of blind stubbornness. It is not continuing to bang your head against a stone wall. Persevering will is intelligent. It is the will of steel that bends but does not break. If an obstacle is insurmountable, it does not give up. It looks for an alternative route. It is a combination of an unwavering determination in the what, the destination, and an infinite flexibility in the how, the route. The key to sustained action is not to wait to feel motivated. It is to act to generate motivation. Movement creates the emotion. Every small action you take in the direction of your goal is a vote you cast in favor of your new identity. It is a signal to your subconscious that your decision is real, and your subconscious responds by giving you more energy and more ideas for the next action. Practice the cycle of will in action. This exercise is designed for you to take an important goal through the 3 phases, from idea to reality. Exercise 1. The clarity of desire. Choose an important goal you have been postponing. Write it down. Now let's give it a soul. Answer these questions in your journal. What do I really desire? Be specific. Not I want to be in shape, but I want to have the energy to play with my kids without getting tired and feel strong and vital in my body. Why do I desire it? Connect with the deep why. Is it for freedom, for love, for security, for self-expression? Write your why in a powerful sentence. Is this a desire of the soul or of the ego? Be honest. Does it arise from a comparison or from an authentic internal resonance? Exercise 2. The decision ritual. Now let's turn your clarified desire into an irrevocable decision. Take a blank sheet of paper. At the top, write in large letters, "My decision." Write your goal not as a desire but as a commitment. Start the sentence with, "I, your name, decide now, with total commitment and without reservation, that I am going to your goal." Below, write a sentence that symbolizes that you are burning the ships. For example, "From this moment on, retreat is not an option. There is only the path forward." Sign and date it. Place this sheet where you will see it every day. You have made a contract with yourself. Exercise 3. The first immediate action. The best way to seal a decision is with an immediate physical action. The action doesn't have to be big. In fact, it's better if it's small, so it doesn't activate your saboteurs. Look at your goal. What is the smallest, most ridiculously easy action you can take in the next 5 minutes to move in that direction? If your goal is to write a book, the action is not write the first chapter. It is open a new document and write a single paragraph. If your goal is to get in shape, the action is not go to the gym for an hour. It is put on your sneakers and walk around the block. If your goal is to launch a business, the action is register the website domain or send a single email. Do it, right now. This small act of immediate congruence between your decision and your action is incredibly powerful. It shows your subconscious that this time you are serious. Desire is the map. Decision is choosing the destination. Action is the journey, step by step. Mastery of the will is not a mystical gift. It is the disciplined practice of navigating these 3 phases over and over until they become the natural rhythm of your life. Chapter 3. The Origin of Power, the Neuroscience of Self-Control. For centuries, the will was the domain of philosophers and theologians. Today, thanks to advances in neuroscience, we can open the hood of the mind and observe the engine in operation. And what we have discovered is as revealing as it is empowering. Understanding the biology of the will doesn't take away its mystery, but it does give us the instruction manual to cultivate it with unprecedented effectiveness. At the center of this manual is a specific region of your brain located just behind your forehead. It is the prefrontal cortex. This is not the oldest or most instinctive part of your brain, but the most evolved. It is the chief executive of your personality, the CEO of your mind. It is the seat of what scientists call executive functions: long-term planning, complex decision-making, emotional regulation, and most importantly for our journey, self-control. When you feel the impulse to check your phone but decide not to, it is your prefrontal cortex exercising its veto power. When you give up the immediate pleasure of a dessert for the long-term goal of better health, it is your prefrontal cortex winning the battle. Every act of conscious will, every time you choose the more difficult but wiser option, is a manifestation of the activity in this extraordinary part of your brain. The most useful and scientifically accurate analogy to understand how the power of the will works in the prefrontal cortex is that of a muscle. Think of any muscle in your body, like the biceps. It has three fundamental characteristics. First, it gets stronger with training. The more you use it consistently and with adequate resistance, the stronger it becomes. Second, it becomes fatigued with overuse. You cannot lift the maximum weight for hours without rest. Eventually, the muscle gets exhausted and fails. And third, it needs energy to function. A body without glucose, rest, and nutrients is a body with weak muscles. Your will functions in exactly the same way. First, it gets stronger with training. Every time you perform a small act of self-discipline, getting up when the alarm goes off instead of snoozing, choosing water instead of soda, finishing a task before checking social media, you are doing a rep for your willpower muscle. You are strengthening the neural pathways in your prefrontal cortex. With time and consistent practice, what once required immense effort becomes easier. Second, and this is crucial, it gets fatigued with use. The will is not an inexhaustible source of moral power. It is a limited biological resource. Every decision you make throughout the day, from the most trivial to the most monumental, draws energy from the same battery. Social psychologists Roy Baumeister and Diane Tice coined the term ego depletion or decision fatigue to describe this phenomenon. Their famous experiments demonstrated this conclusively. In one of them, they brought a group of students into a room where there was a table with two types of food: freshly baked chocolate cookies and radishes. One group was told they could eat the cookies. The other was told they could only eat the radishes, forcing them to use their will to resist the temptation of the chocolate. Immediately after, both groups were given an impossible puzzle to solve, to measure their perseverance. The result was astonishing. The group that had eaten the cookies worked on the puzzle for an average of 20 minutes before giving up. The group that had to resist the cookies, depleting their willpower muscle, gave up in an average of only 8 minutes. The conclusion is revolutionary. The willpower you use to resist a cookie is the same willpower you use to focus on a difficult job, to be patient with your family, or to make important strategic decisions. You don't have one reserve of willpower for your diet, another for work, and another for relationships. You have a single battery. And every time you use it, it discharges a little. This explains many of the mysteries of our behavior. It explains why you are much more likely to give in to the temptation of junk food at night after a day full of decisions and stress at work. It explains why judges tend to give harsher sentences just before lunch than just after. With a low willpower battery, it's easier to take the default path, the simplest decision. And third, the will needs energy to function. That exhaustion is not just a feeling, it is a physiological phenomenon. The brain's primary fuel is glucose. The prefrontal cortex, when performing the demanding tasks of self-control, is a major consumer of this energy. When your blood glucose levels are low, when you are hungry or physically exhausted, your willpower muscle is significantly weaker. A tired and hungry brain is an impulsive brain. Knowing this, the strategy for mastering the will changes completely. It stops being a matter of being stronger and becomes a matter of being smarter. It's about managing your volitional energy like a strategist manages their most valuable resource. The battle for self-control is, in reality, a neurological battle between two parts of your brain. On one side, you have the prefrontal cortex, the wise CEO who thinks long-term. On the other, you have the more primitive parts of your brain, like the limbic system and the amygdala, the center of impulse, emotion, and instant gratification. When you face a temptation, these two parts come into direct conflict. Your limbic system screams, "Pleasure now, security now, avoid pain now." Your prefrontal cortex whispers, "Wait, remember our long-term goal. This decision will have consequences." Who wins that battle depends, to a large extent, on the state of your willpower battery at that precise moment. Practice. The diagnosis and management of your volitional energy. Exercise. 1. Your willpower energy audit. To manage your energy, you must first know how you spend it. For the next 2 days, 1 work day and 1 rest day, you are going to become an auditor of your own battery. Divide a page of your journal into 3 columns: morning, afternoon, and evening. In each time slot, rate your level of mental energy and your capacity for self-control from 1 to 10. Additionally, note the most important decisions or the tasks that demanded the most self-control from you in each period. For example, morning, 9/10. Had a difficult meeting, but remained calm. Afternoon, 6/10. Struggled to concentrate on the report. Evening, 3/10. Couldn't resist watching 3 episodes of the series instead of 1. At the end of the 2 days, you will have a clear map of your willpower peaks and valleys. Are you a morning person with a full battery upon waking? Or does your energy increase in the afternoon? Knowing your natural rhythm is the first step to scheduling your most important tasks during your moments of peak power. Exercise 2. Identify your willpower leaks. Review your audit. What are the activities, people, or situations that consistently drain your battery the fastest? Often they are things we don't even consider decisions. The constant fight against your phone's notifications. Every no to a distraction is a small expenditure of will. A cluttered work environment. Every time you have to look for something, you make a micro decision. Conflicting relationships. Every tense conversation consumes an immense amount of regulatory energy. An unbalanced diet. The peaks and crashes of blood sugar are like power surges for your battery. Make a list of your top 3 willpower leaks. These are the areas where creating systems and habits, and as we will see in later chapters, will give you the greatest return on investment. Understanding the neuroscience of the will is incredibly liberating. It frees you from guilt and self-criticism. If you failed, it's not because you are weak. It's because your muscle was fatigued. It gives you a clear and practical action plan. Train your muscle with small challenges, conserve it for the decisions that really matter, and make sure it is always well-fed and rested. Chapter 4. The Energy Thief. The Paralysis of Indecision. There is an energy leak in our mental life so silent and so persistent that we often don't even notice it until we find ourselves completely exhausted without having fought any real battles. This leak is chronic indecision. Indecision is not a simple pause for reflection. It is a state of civil war in the mind. It is the battlefield where 2 or more desires, fears, or possibilities fight for control, with none having enough strength to win. This internal conflict, this endless debate in the court of our consciousness, is one of the most energy-consuming activities. It's like having dozens of apps open on your phone, all running in the background, heating up the processor and draining the battery while we are doing nothing productive. To overcome the paralysis of indecision, we must first understand its psychological roots. Indecision is rarely a problem of lacking information. It is often a problem of fear. The first and deepest root is the fear of being wrong. This fear is born of perfectionism, that saboteur that disguises itself as excellence. We cling to the illusion that if we just analyze a little more, if we gather one more piece of data, if we ask a friend for one more opinion, we can find the perfect decision, the one that guarantees a successful outcome and protects us from failure and judgment. But the perfect decision does not exist. It is a myth. In an uncertain world, no amount of analysis can guarantee the outcome. Indecision, therefore, becomes a strategy to avoid responsibility. As long as we don't decide, we can't be wrong. The problem is, we also cannot be right. The second root is the fear of loss, a psychological principle known as loss aversion. Behavioral economists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky demonstrated that the pain of losing something is, psychologically, twice as powerful as the pleasure of winning something equivalent. Every decision is an act of renunciation. By choosing path A, you inevitably lose the potential benefits of paths B, C, and D. Our mind hates this feeling of loss. Indecision becomes a desperate attempt to avoid this pain, to keep all options open, to not have to give up anything. But the paradox is cruel. In trying not to lose anything, we often end up losing everything, especially opportunity, which is time-sensitive. The third root is the tyranny of options. We live in a world with an overwhelming number of possibilities. We believe that having more options makes us freer, but psychologist Barry Schwartz argued the opposite in his book, The Paradox of Choice. Too many options do not liberate. They paralyze. They increase the cognitive load of the decision, making the process more exhausting. And what's worse, they increase the likelihood of regret. If you choose from 3 options and yours doesn't work out, it's bad luck. If you choose from 300 and yours doesn't work out, you feel the blame is entirely yours for not having chosen better. The price of not choosing is immense and is paid in the currency of our vitality and our potential. The first cost is the depletion of willpower. Every minute you spend debating a decision consumes the same energy you would need to act on it. You spend hours deciding whether or not to go to the gym, and by the time you finally decide to go, you have no energy left to train. The second cost is the loss of opportunities. While you deliberate, the world moves on. The window of opportunity closes. The train of synchronicity, the one that requires swift intuitive action, passes by your station. The universe rewards clarity and action, not infinite deliberation. And the third cost, the deepest, is the erosion of your self-trust. Every time you postpone a decision, you send a message to your subconscious. I don't trust my ability to choose. I am not a leader. I am a follower of circumstances. Chronic indecision creates an identity of helplessness. You teach yourself that you are not the captain of your ship, but a mere passenger waiting for the wind to decide for you. The good news is that decision-making is a muscle, and it can be trained. The art of courageous decision-making is not about always being right, but about developing the ability to choose, act, and adapt with confidence. Practice the art of courageous decision-making. Exercise. 1. The 70% rule. Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, attributes much of his success to this principle. The rule is simple. Never wait until you have 100% of the information to make a decision, because if you wait that long, it will almost always be too late. The goal is to gather information until you have about 70% of the certainty you would like to have. That is the point at which you should make the decision and act. The remaining 30% of uncertainty is not a risk you must eliminate, but the space where your ability to improvise, adapt, and correct course on the fly can shine. Give yourself permission to act with good enough information. Exercise 2. The reversibility principle. Not all decisions are created equal. Bezos also divides decisions into 2 types. Type 1-inch decisions are like one-way doors. They are nearly irreversible and have massive consequences: getting married, having a child, selling your company. These decisions deserve slow and careful deliberation. But the vast majority of decisions in life and business are type 2. They are like revolving doors. They are reversible. If you make a mistake, you can go back and take another path at a relatively low cost. Hiring this person, trying this new marketing strategy, signing up for that course. These are type 2 decisions. For these decisions, the cost of indecision is much higher than the cost of an error. The correct strategy is to decide quickly, act, get real-world feedback, and if it doesn't work, correct course. Always ask yourself, is this a one-way door or a revolving door? If it's a revolving door, decide fast and move. Exercise 3. The decision timer. This is an incredibly practical tool to combat paralysis in decisions of medium importance. Give your decision a deadline. If you have to decide on a new supplier, for example, say, I am going to research for 48 hours, and on Friday at 5 p.m., I will make a decision and not think about it again. Or for smaller decisions, use a literal timer. What movie am I watching tonight? I have 5 minutes to decide. The timer forces you to switch from infinite analysis mode to executive choice mode. Exercise 4. The heads or tails oracle. This is a powerful technique for when you are truly stuck between 2 options that seem equally good. It is not an act of chance, but a tool to reveal your intuition. Assign option A to heads and option B to tails. Toss a coin in the air. And now the crucial part. In the instant the coin is in the air, before it lands, or in the second you see the result, pay attention to your internal emotional reaction. What result are you hoping for? Do you feel a microsecond of relief if it's heads, or a small pang of disappointment if it's tails? That instantaneous emotional reaction is your intuition revealing what you really wanted, beyond your logical analysis. You don't have to obey the coin. You have to obey the feeling the coin has revealed in you. A good decision made in time is infinitely better than a perfect decision made too late. The goal of this training is not to become someone who never makes a mistake. It is to become someone who never gets paralyzed. It is to embrace action and learning over the illusion of certainty. Chapter 5. The Tyranny of Impulse, the Struggle Against Instant Gratification. This siege is the culture of instant gratification. Never before in human history have we lived in an environment so hostile to long-term will. Everything around us is optimized for immediacy, for instant reward, for one-click pleasure. From the fast food that arrives at our door in minutes, to the endless entertainment available on our screens, to the social validation in the form of likes we receive seconds after posting a photo. We have built a paradise for our most primitive impulses, and in the process, we have created a hell for our higher self. To understand why this culture is so corrosive to our will, we must return to neuroscience. Our brain, at its core, has not changed much in the last 50,000 years. We still operate with a reward system designed for a world of scarcity. In that world, if you found a source of sugar, like a ripe fruit, the smartest thing was to eat it all immediately because you didn't know when you would find it again. If you had the opportunity to rest and conserve energy, that was the sensible thing to do. This system, driven by the neurotransmitter dopamine, rewarded us for seeking immediate pleasure and avoiding pain. Dopamine is often misunderstood as the pleasure molecule. In reality, it is the molecule of anticipation and motivation. It is the chemical that drives us to seek the reward. Your brain releases dopamine not when you eat the cookie, but when you see it and anticipate the pleasure of eating it. It is the engine of seeking. The problem is that our modern environment has hijacked this system. Every notification on our phone, every like, every new video in our feed is designed to be a little hit of dopamine. It trains us, like Skinner's lab rats, to constantly seek the next small reward, and in doing so, it creates an addiction loop. The more dopamine we receive from these fast and easy sources, the more our brain needs to feel the same level of satisfaction, and the less sensitive it becomes to more subtle, long-term rewards. The result is a catastrophe for our will. Our capacity for delay of gratification, the fundamental ability to give up a lesser pleasure now for a greater reward in the future, is eroded day by day. It is the skill measured in the famous marshmallow test, where children are given the choice to eat 1 marshmallow now or wait 15 minutes and receive 2. The children who are able to wait, to exercise their will over their impulse, are shown to have better outcomes in almost every aspect of life decades later. The tyranny of impulse turns us all into children who always choose the first marshmallow. The long-term desire to write a novel, an immense but distant reward, is hijacked by the short-term impulse to watch a 5-minute YouTube video, a small immediate dopaminergic reward. The long-term desire to build a successful business is sabotaged by the short-term impulse to check social media instead of making that difficult sales call. The long-term desire for a deep human connection is eroded by the short-term impulse to seek the superficial validation of likes. In this neurological battle, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of our will and our long-term goals, is at an immense disadvantage against the limbic system, the center of impulse and immediate gratification, which is being constantly overstimulated by our environment. But we are not doomed. We can fight back. We can regain control of our dopamine system and put it back at the service of our highest goals, not of the algorithms of big tech. The key is not brute force, not resisting more. The key, again, is strategy. It's about becoming the architect of your own environment, designing it to support your will, not to sabotage it. Practice reclaiming your sovereignty over dopamine. Exercise 1. The dopamine fast. To resensitize your brain to natural rewards, you need to give it a break from the artificial bombardment. I propose a 24-hour dopamine fast. Choose a day on the weekend. For those 24 hours, your mission is to eliminate all sources of instant gratification and high stimulation. This means no social media, no news, no YouTube or Netflix, no video games, no junk food, no online shopping. What can you do instead? Low dopamine activities, read a physical book, write in a journal, take a long walk in nature, meditate, have a deep face-to-face conversation, exercise, cook a healthy meal from scratch, or simply be bored. At first, you will feel incredibly restless and anxious. This is withdrawal. Your brain will be screaming for its usual fix. But if you persevere, by the end of the day, you will notice something amazing. Simple things will feel pleasurable again. Music will sound richer. Food will taste better. A conversation will feel more connected. You have reset your baseline. You don't have to do this every day, but a weekly or monthly fast can do wonders for your ability to concentrate and your willpower. Exercise 2. Designing a high-friction environment. The principle is simple. Make it difficult to do what you don't want to do and easy to do what you do want to do. For digital distraction, delete all social media apps from your phone. Access them only through the browser, which adds a step of friction. Turn off 99% of notifications. The only notification you need is for phone calls. Put your phone in grayscale mode. Without the vibrant colors, your brain will find it much less appealing. During your work blocks, physically put the phone in another room. The mere presence of the phone on your desk, even face down, has been shown to decrease cognitive capacity. For food temptation, don't bring junk food into the house. The most important act of will is not performed at 10 p.m. in front of the fridge, but at the supermarket. If it's not in the house, you can't eat it. For productivity, prepare your environment the night before. If you want to exercise in the morning, leave your gym clothes and sneakers next to the bed. If you want to write, leave your laptop open to the blank page. Reduce the friction to starting the right action. Exercise 3. The 10-minute rule. This is your tool for combating the impulse of procrastination in real time. When you feel the urge to postpone an important task and seek a distraction, make a pact with yourself. Say, okay, I can do what I want, but first I'm going to work on the important task for just 10 minutes. Set a timer. Often, the hardest part is starting. After 10 minutes of work, the inertia will have been broken. It's very likely that by the time the alarm goes off, you'll already be in a state of flow and want to continue. And if not, you give yourself permission to stop without guilt. But you will have made 10 minutes of progress. The battle against instant gratification is not a battle that is won only once. It is a daily practice. It is the conscious act of choosing, over and over again, the long-term reward of growth and meaning over the ephemeral pleasure of distraction. You are not a victim of the algorithms. You are the architect of your attention. Every time you deliberately choose where to place your focus, you are exercising your will. Every time you close a useless tab, every time you postpone checking your phone, every time you choose productive boredom over easy entertainment, you are strengthening your invisible muscle. Chapter 6. The Captain's Fatigue, Decision Fatigue, and How to Combat It. Imagine the captain of a great ship in the midst of a storm. Their job is monumental. They must read the maps, interpret the winds, give precise orders to the crew, remain calm, and above all, hold the rudder firmly to stay on course. During the first few hours, their concentration is absolute, their decisions are sharp, their energy seems inexhaustible. But what happens after 12, 14, 16 hours of uninterrupted effort? The captain, no matter how strong and experienced, gets tired. Their attention begins to waver. Their decisions become slower, less precise. They start to take shortcuts, to choose the easiest option instead of the most correct one. It's not that they have become a bad captain. Their energy has simply run out. This is the experience we live every day. Our prefrontal cortex, the captain of our mind, is not a tireless machine. It is a biological muscle that, as we have seen, becomes fatigued with use. This phenomenon, decision fatigue, is the silent enemy of our greatest achievements. It is the reason why the disciplined and focused me of 9 in the morning becomes the impulsive and gratification-seeking me of 9 at night. Decision fatigue is a form of mental exhaustion that occurs after a prolonged session of decision-making. What is crucial to understand is that it's not just the big, stressful decisions that drain our battery. Every small choice we make, from what clothes to wear in the morning, which route to take to work, how to respond to an email, to deciding what to have for dinner, consumes a small but measurable amount of our volitional energy. At the beginning of the day, our battery is full. We are able to resist temptation, to think long-term, and to tackle complex tasks. But as the day progresses and we make dozens, hundreds of small decisions, the battery discharges. And when the battery is low, 3 predictable and dangerous things happen. First, our capacity for self-control plummets. With the prefrontal cortex fatigued, the more primitive parts of our brain, those that seek immediate pleasure, take control. That's why, after an exhausting day at work, you are much more likely to skip the gym, order junk food instead of cooking something healthy, or spend money on an impulsive purchase. Your wise self knows what is best, but the captain is too tired to hold the rudder against the strong current of impulse. Second, we fall into decision paralysis. Faced with a new choice, however simple, the fatigued mind feels overwhelmed. Instead of evaluating the options, we simply postpone the decision. It's the phenomenon of getting home at night and spending an hour browsing the Netflix catalog, unable to choose a movie until you fall asleep on the couch. Exhaustion makes us prefer inaction to spending the last drop of energy on another choice. And third, we resort to mental shortcuts. When the captain is tired, they look for the simplest route, This often means making the default decision, the easiest option, or simply saying yes to everything to avoid the effort of saying no. This can lead to commitments we didn't want, to accepting tasks that aren't ours, or to making impulsive and ill-considered financial decisions. Understanding decision fatigue is liberating. It frees you from guilt. You are not weak or undisciplined for giving in to temptation at night. You are simply a human being with a finite energy battery. But this understanding also gives you an immense responsibility. It forces you to shift from being an unconscious spender of your will to becoming an intelligent manager of your energy. The key to a will of steel is not trying to have a bigger battery. It is learning to conserve the energy of the battery you have for the battles that truly matter. It's about strategic management, not brute force. Practice the strategic management of your will. Here are 4 fundamental strategies to combat decision fatigue and optimize the use of your volitional energy. Strategy 1. Automate the insignificant. The power of routine. Think about the number of trivial decisions you make every morning before leaving the house. What do I wear? What do I have for breakfast? Do I check email now or later? Each of these small choices is a small drain on your battery. Multiplied by days and years, the waste is immense. The solution is to create routines. A routine is a series of pre-decided actions that you perform automatically without expending willpower. Look at some of the most successful people in the world, like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, known for almost always wearing the same type of clothing. They didn't do it for lack of style. They did it to eliminate one trivial decision from their day and conserve that energy for the decisions that really mattered. Exercise your uniform of success. You don't have to wear the same clothes every day, but you can decide the night before exactly what you are going to wear. Or you can create a kind of uniform for work days, for example, certain types of shirts and pants that always match. Exercise. The default breakfast. Choose a healthy breakfast that you like and make it your default option for work days. Variety can wait for the weekend. Exercise. The morning routine. Design a sequence of actions for your first hour of the day and follow it religiously. For example, wake up, drink water, meditate for 10 minutes, exercise for 20 minutes, shower. By automating this first hour, you start the day with your willpower battery at nearly 100%, instead of having already spent 20% of it on trivialities. Strategy 2. Prioritize the essential, eat the frog first. Knowing that your will is strongest in the morning, the golden rule of productivity is simple. Do your most important, most difficult, and most self-control demanding task first thing in the day. Author Mark Twain put it memorably, "If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning, and if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first." Your frog is that crucial task that you know will have the greatest impact on your long-term goals, but that you often postpone because it is difficult or uncomfortable. Exercise. Identify your daily frog. Each evening before finishing your day, identify the single most important task you must complete the next day. Your frog. Exercise. Block out the sacred time. Schedule that task in your calendar as the first thing you will do in your workday, before checking email, before meetings, before the world starts throwing its urgencies at you. Dedicate a block of 60 to 90 minutes of uninterrupted concentration to it. By eating that frog first, you not only ensure that the most important thing gets done, but the rest of the day feels lighter and more productive. Strategy 3. Feed the captain, the biology of self-control. The will is not just mental, it is physical. Your prefrontal cortex needs fuel to function. The food rule. Never make important decisions on an empty stomach. Lack of glucose is the #1 enemy of self-control. If you are facing a difficult afternoon of work, make sure you have healthy snacks on hand that provide sustained energy, not sugar spikes followed by a crash. The rest rule. Sleep is perhaps the most powerful willpower recovery tool that exists. During deep sleep, Your brain cleanses itself of metabolic toxins and recharges its energy reserves. Prioritizing 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep is not a luxury. It is a strategic necessity. A single night of poor sleep can drastically reduce the activity of your prefrontal cortex the next day. Strategy 4. The power of pre-commitment. This is an advanced strategy for the major battles of the will. A pre-commitment is a decision you make in a moment of calm and with a full battery, which forces you to follow the right path in a future moment of temptation. Example: the social commitment. If you want to commit to exercising, don't just wish for it. Sign up for a class and pay for it in advance, or arrange to work out with a friend. The social or financial commitment makes it much more painful not to follow through, giving you external leverage for your will. Example: the environmental commitment. If you want to avoid eating junk food, the pre-commitment is not to buy it at the supermarket. If you want to avoid distractions, the pre-commitment is to use an app that blocks social media during your work hours. Mastering your will is not about having superhuman strength. It's about being a brilliant strategist. It's about understanding that you are the guardian of an incredibly powerful but limited resource and designing your life to protect it, conserve it, and deploy it with surgical precision in the battles that truly define your destiny. Chapter 7. The Mind's Gym: How to Train Your Will. Welcome to your mental gym. In this chapter, we will move from theory to practice. I will provide you with a training program, a series of exercises designed to strengthen your prefrontal cortex and increase your capacity for self-control and determination. The fundamental principle of any strength training is progressive overload. You don't walk into a gym for the first time and try to lift the heaviest weight. That would only lead to injury. You start with a weight that is manageable but challenging, and as you get stronger, you gradually increase the resistance. The muscle grows in response to this constant and progressive challenge. The willpower muscle operates under exactly the same principle. Trying to change all your bad habits overnight is like trying to lift 200 kilos without ever having trained. You are destined to fail and feel frustrated. The path of the master of the will is the path of patience and intelligent progression. Our training program will be divided into 2 types of exercises, just like in a physical gym. On one hand, we have resistance training to strengthen our ability to say no, and on the other, persistence training to strengthen our ability to say yes. Resistance training: strengthening your inner no. The ability to resist an impulse to say no to instant gratification is one of the primary functions of the will. Every time you exercise this power, you are doing a rep for your self-control muscle. Here are some exercises from lower to higher difficulty. Beginner level exercise: the posture fast. This is one of the simplest and most effective exercises. Choose a period of time. It could be just 10 or 15 minutes a day, in which you will sit or stand completely straight, without slouching. You will notice that, after a few minutes, your body will want to return to its usual slouched posture. Every time you notice that impulse and consciously straighten your back again, you will be performing a rep. You are using your will to override an automatic physical habit. It is a low-risk exercise you can do anywhere. Intermediate level exercise: the non-dominant hand challenge. Choose a simple task that you perform automatically every day: brushing your teeth, opening doors, using the computer mouse. Now, for 1 week, commit to performing that task exclusively with your non-dominant hand. This exercise is incredibly powerful because it forces you to break a deeply ingrained neurological habit. Every second you are using your clumsy hand will require conscious concentration and will, massively strengthening the connections in your prefrontal cortex. Advanced level exercise: conscious temptation. This is the heavy lifting of self-control. Identify one of your small, regular temptations: a chocolate cookie, checking a specific social network, watching a short video. Now, instead of trying to avoid it, You're going to use it to train. Place the temptation in plain sight. Put the cookie on a plate on your desk. Leave the app icon on your home screen. And now, set a timer for 15 minutes. Your only task is to work on something else while you feel the impulse to give in to the temptation. Do not fight the impulse. Observe it. Feel how it grows, and then how it subsides. Every time the impulse appears and you consciously choose not to act, it's as if you were doing a push-up with your willpower muscle. You are teaching your brain that you are the one in charge, not your impulses. Persistence training, strengthening your sustained yes. The will is not just about resisting the negative. It is, more importantly, about persisting in the positive. It is the ability to stay on course toward your long-term goals, especially when the path becomes difficult or boring. Beginner-level exercise, the 2-minute rule. Often the hardest part of any task is simply starting. Inertia is the enemy of action. This rule, popularized by author James Clear, is the perfect antidote. Choose a habit you want to install: meditating, reading, exercising, writing. Now, reduce the commitment to just 2 minutes. Your goal is not to meditate for half an hour. Your goal is to sit down and meditate for 2 minutes. The willpower needed to start something for 2 minutes is incredibly small. Anyone can do it. The magic of this rule is that often, once you have overcome the initial resistance and started, it is much easier to continue. The goal of the will is not to complete the task, but simply to start it. Intermediate level exercise, the chain counter. This technique, attributed to comedian Jerry Seinfeld, is a powerful tool for building consistency. Choose a single daily habit that is crucial for your long-term goal. Buy a large wall calendar and a red marker. Every day you complete your habit, draw a big red X over that day. After a few days, you will have a chain. Your only job from that moment on is not to break the chain. This method leverages several psychological forces: the visual satisfaction of seeing your progress and the loss aversion you feel when thinking about breaking a long, well-built chain. You are turning discipline into a game that your will wants to win. Advanced level exercise, deliberate practice. True mastery in any field comes not from simple repetition, but from deliberate practice. This means consistently working at the edge of your comfort zone, focusing on improving a specific aspect of a skill. Choose a skill you want to master. Dedicate a block of time, it could be 30 or 60 minutes, to practicing it, but with a clear intention, to improve on an aspect where you are weak. The act of voluntarily facing the discomfort of not being good at something, of making mistakes and correcting them, is a high-level workout for the perseverance muscle. The nutrition and recovery of your muscle. No training program is complete without a nutrition and rest plan. You can have the best intentions, but if your willpower muscle has no fuel or is fatigued, you will fail. The willpower diet. As we saw, the fuel for your prefrontal cortex is glucose, but not all glucose is the same. Eating a sweet will give you a quick energy spike followed by a crash, leaving your will even weaker. The key is a diet that keeps your blood sugar levels stable: complex carbohydrates, oats, vegetables, proteins, and healthy fats. Restorative sleep. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a strategic necessity. It is during deep sleep that your brain cleanses itself, repairs, and recharges its energy reserves for the next day. A single night of poor sleep can significantly impair your will. Prioritizing your sleep is one of the most important self-discipline practices that exist. Active rest. Throughout the day, your willpower muscle needs breaks. But a break looking at social media is not rest. It's a different kind of energy expenditure. True active rest involves practices that calm your nervous system, such as meditation, deep breathing, or a short walk in nature. These practices are like stretching for your muscles. They release tension and prepare you for the next effort. Practice. Design your mental gym routine. Exercise 1. Choose your exercises. Based on your energy audit from the previous chapter, Choose your training program for the next week. Be realistic. Choose one resistance exercise, for example, straight posture for 15 minutes a day. Choose one persistence exercise, for example, the 2-minute rule for reading each night. Write them down. Exercise 2. Schedule your training. A goal without a plan is just a wish. Open your calendar right now and schedule your mental gym sessions. When and where are you going to practice your posture exercise? At what exact time are you going to apply the 2-minute rule? Treat this commitment to yourself with the same seriousness as a meeting with your most important boss. Exercise 3. The training journal. At the end of each day, take 2 minutes to record your progress. Did I do my willpower reps today? Yes. No. How did I feel? Was it easier or harder than yesterday? What have I learned about my own resistance and my impulses? This simple act of tracking creates an awareness and accountability that will accelerate your progress exponentially. The will is not a mystical gift you are born with or without. It is a skill that is built, like any other. With intelligent, progressive, and consistent training, you can go from being a beginner in the mind's gym to becoming a true athlete of discipline. Training strengthens your muscles so you can lift heavier weights and sustain longer efforts. But the smartest athlete doesn't just rely on their brute force. They build an environment and systems that make the lifting feel lighter. This is the art of self-discipline. Chapter 8. The art of self-discipline. Building systems, not just effort. Is brute force the smartest way to win a war? A wise general does not send their strongest soldiers into an unnecessary battle of attrition. Instead, they seek a strategic advantage. They change the topography of the terrain in their favor, cut off the enemy's supply lines, build fortifications. They win the battle before the fighting even begins. The art of self-discipline does not lie in having a superhuman will capable of winning any battle through sheer effort. It lies in the wisdom of designing a life where you have to fight as few battles as possible. Willpower is for exceptional moments. It's for the final sprint, for the unexpected crisis, for the crucial decision. But if you depend on it for every small action of your day-to-day life, to not eat that cookie, to not check your phone, to start working, you are doomed to exhaustion. You are using your best soldier for menial tasks. True mastery, the kind that leads to sustainable and effortless change, lies in a fundamental shift of focus, from willpower to systems, from trying to change yourself at every moment to changing the environment that shapes you. It's about moving from being the soldier in the trench to being the architect of the battlefield. A system is a structure or a process that we design in a moment of clarity and with a full willpower battery, so that it guides our behavior automatically in future moments of fatigue or temptation. A system makes the right decision the easiest option, the path of least resistance. While willpower requires a constant expenditure of energy, a good system, once built, works for you with minimal energy expenditure. It is the difference between having to push your car every morning to get it started and having a car that starts just by turning a key. The goal of this chapter is to give you the tools to become the engineer of your own systems for success. Principle 1. Be the architect of your environment. The most fundamental law of human behavior is this: we are creatures deeply influenced by our environment. Often your behavior is not the product of your personality or your discipline, but of the cues and options that surround you. Changing your environment is the fastest and most effective way to change your behavior. Imagine you want to stop eating junk food. You can use your willpower to resist the cookies you have in the pantry, fighting a small battle every night. Or you can make a single decision at the supermarket, not to buy the cookies, and eliminate the need to fight that battle entirely. You've won the week's war with a single act of environmental design. Environmental design applies to two areas, the physical and the digital. Physical environment design, the 20-second rule. Psychologist Sean Achor discovered that adding just 20 seconds of friction to a bad habit can be enough to break it. If you want to watch less television, take the batteries out of the remote and put them in another room. That little extra effort will often be enough for your brain to choose an easier option, like reading a book that you have conveniently left on the couch. Conversely, reduce the friction for good habits. If you want to play the guitar more, don't keep it in its case in the closet. Leave it on a stand in the middle of your living room. The single-purpose environment. If possible, assign a single purpose to each space in your home. Your bed is only for sleeping, not for working or watching series. Your desk is only for deep work, not for social media. Your dining table is only for eating, not for checking email. Over time, your brain will create a strong neurological association, and simply sitting at your desk will trigger a state of concentration. Digital environment design. The notification diet. As we've already mentioned, every notification is a hijacking of your attention. Perform a radical audit. Turn off all notifications on your phone and computer that are not absolutely essential. The world can wait. The home screen architecture. Your home screen is the shop window of your digital mind. What do you have there? Distraction apps or creation tools. Redesign your home screen. Remove all social media, news, and entertainment apps. Put them in a folder on the last screen. On the first screen, place only the tools that support your goals. Your calendar, your notes app, your meditation app. Principle 2. Turn your will into habits. A habit is, in essence, an automated behavioral system. It is an action that your brain has learned to perform on autopilot to save energy. The beauty of a habit is that, once installed, it requires minimal or no willpower to be executed. You no longer have to decide whether to brush your teeth in the morning. You just do it. The secret to building habits is not motivation, but consistency and clarity. Neuroscientist B.J. Fogg of Stanford University developed a simple but incredibly powerful formula for habit creation, known as tiny habits. The formula is, after existing habit, I will do tiny new habit. This technique, also called habit stacking, leverages the neural structure of a habit you already have to anchor the new one. If you want to start meditating, don't aim to meditate 20 minutes a day. That requires too much willpower. Instead, use the formula. After my coffee maker starts brewing coffee in the morning, existing habit, I will sit down and meditate for a single deep breath. Tiny new habit. If you want to start reading more, the formula would be, after I get into bed at night, existing habit, I will read a single page of a book. Tiny new habit. The key is to make the new habit so absurdly small and easy that it's almost impossible not to do it. The initial goal is not the result, it is consistency. It is teaching your brain the new routine. Once the habit of reading one page is installed and automatic, it is much easier to expand it to 5 pages and then to a chapter. Principle 3. The power of pre-commitment. A pre-commitment is the ultimate willpower system. It is an act of self-architecture. It is a decision you make in your wisest and most disciplined state, your present self, to compel your future, tempted self to make the right decision. It is Ulysses tying himself to the mast of the ship so he can hear the siren's song without succumbing to it. There are several types of pre-commitment. The financial pre-commitment. This is the most direct. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings or investment account on the day you receive your salary. This way, the wise you at the beginning of the month is making the decision to save, and the tempted you at the end of the month doesn't even see that money as an option to spend. The social pre-commitment, the accountability pact. Find a trusted friend and make a pact. My goal is to go to the gym 3 times a week. For every week I don't meet it, I will pay you $50. Or, I will send you a photo from the gym every time I go. The fear of financial loss or social embarrassment is an incredibly powerful motivator. The environmental pre-commitment. This is the simplest form. If you want to avoid digital distractions while working, use an app that blocks specific websites for a period of time. The focused you of the present is putting a lock on the door of distraction, knowing that the future, tempted you, will not have the strength to look for the key. Practice building your self-discipline systems. Exercise 1. The struggle diagnosis. Choose an area of your life where you feel you are spending a disproportionate amount of willpower every day. Is it your diet, your productivity, your finances? Now answer this question. Where am I relying on willpower instead of having built a system? For example, I am relying on my willpower not to eat cookies at night instead of having a system of not buying them in the first place. I'm relying on my willpower to start working on my project instead of having a system of a distraction-free environment and a clear starting routine. Identifying the exact point of struggle is the first step to designing a systemic solution. Exercise 2. Design your first system. Based on your diagnosis, choose a single problem and design a simple system to solve it. Use the principles we have seen. Problem. I check my phone compulsively in the morning. System. Tonight, I'm going to leave my phone charging in the kitchen, not on my nightstand. Environmental design. Instead, I will put a book there, reducing friction for the good habit. My new habit will be, after I turn off my alarm, I will sit up and read one page of my book. Habit stacking. Exercise 3. Make a 1-week pre-commitment. Choose a goal for the next week, and now create a pre-commitment that makes it almost impossible not to follow through. Goal. I want to write for 30 minutes every day. Pre-commitment. I am going to give my best friend $100. If at the end of each day I have sent them a photo of my written work, I keep the money. For every day I fail, they will keep $15 of that money. This type of pact transforms a simple intention into a commitment with real consequences. Self-discipline is not a character trait you are born with. It is the result of intelligent design. It is the art of ceasing to be the hero who fights the dragons of temptation every day and becoming the architect who designs a castle where the dragons simply cannot enter. By building systems and habits, you do not eliminate the need for will. You liberate it. You free it from trivial daily battles so that it can be fresh, charged, and ready to be deployed on its true mission, to make the bold and sustained decisions that will lead you to the peak of your potential. Chapter 9. The flexible will, the steel that bends, not breaks. This image of the iron will is what our culture admires and glorifies. It is that of the leader who never doubts, the athlete who never gives in, the entrepreneur who plows through walls with sheer force. It is an image of rigidity, of unwavering determination, and it is often a model for failure. Because iron, despite its impressive hardness, has a fatal weakness. It is brittle. Faced with too much pressure or an unexpected impact, iron does not bend. It shatters. In the same way, a purely rigid will, one that only knows how to push forward without adapting, is destined to break when faced with the complexity and unpredictability of real life. We now arrive at a more advanced stage in the mastery of ourselves, a stage that requires not only strength, but also wisdom. It is time to evolve from an iron will to a will of steel. What is the difference? Steel, especially of the highest quality, like that of a samurai sword, is forged through a process of repeated heating, hammering, and cooling. This process not only hardens it, but also gives it a quality that iron does not possess: flexibility. A good steel blade can bend into almost a circle and then return to its original shape without losing its edge. It is this combination of hardness and flexibility that makes it invincible. A will of steel, therefore, is not weaker than one of iron. It is infinitely stronger. It is a will that possesses two qualities in perfect balance: an unwavering determination in the destination and an infinite adaptability in the route. The person with an iron will says, I will reach that mountain, and I will do it by going through this forest in a straight line, no matter how many trees I have to knock down. The person with a will of steel says, I will reach that mountain, and if the forest is too dense, I will go around it. If the river is too mighty, I will walk along its bank until I find a bridge. If a storm comes, I will seek shelter and wait. My destination is non-negotiable. My strategy is, this is the wisdom of water, which is the softest yet most powerful substance on earth. Water never tries to break a rock with a single frontal blow. It flows around it, patiently erodes it, finds every crack, and over time, the most imposing rock becomes sand. The flexible will is the application of this wisdom to our goals. It is the art of finding the path of least resistance. To cultivate this higher form of will, we must learn to handle 3 strategic tactics. Tactic 1. The strategic pivot. When you encounter a massive obstacle on your path, the reaction of the iron will is to persevere, which often means to push harder. Sometimes this is necessary, but many other times the obstacle is not a test of your perseverance. It is a signal from reality telling you, with all the subtlety of a brick wall, that your strategy is wrong. The strategic pivot is the ability to detach from your initial plan and adapt to new information without abandoning your final goal. It's not giving up. It's being smart. Imagine an entrepreneur who has invested a year in a product that, upon launch, nobody buys. The iron will would say, I need more marketing, more advertising. I have to force the market to see how brilliant my idea is. Often, this leads to bankruptcy. The will of steel says, the market has given me data. My plan A has failed. I am going to talk to the few people who did show interest. I am going to understand what they really need, and I am going to pivot my product to serve that real need. Many of the most successful companies in the world did not succeed with their original idea, but with a strategic pivot. To be able to pivot, you need to separate your ego from your strategy. Your strategy is not you. It is just a tool, a hypothesis. If it is proven wrong, it doesn't mean you are a failure. It means you are a good scientist who has just obtained valuable data that allows you to formulate a better hypothesis. Tactic 2. The 85% rule. The iron will operate in an all-or-nothing mode. Either I do my perfect 1-hour exercise routine, or I do nothing. Either I write my 2,000 words a day, or the day is a failure. This mentality is incredibly fragile. The moment an unexpected event prevents you from meeting your goal 100%, you are very likely to fall into the what the hell effect. Well, I've already failed today, so it doesn't matter. I'll eat the whole pizza and do nothing. The will of steel, in contrast, understands the 85% rule. Elite athlete trainers know that maximum sustainable performance is not achieved by training at 100% of your capacity every day. That only leads to burnout and injuries. Optimal growth occurs by consistently operating at around 85% of your maximum. Applying this to your will means giving yourself permission to be human. It means that the goal is not perfection, it is consistency. If your goal is to write 1,000 words a day, and one day you only have the energy or time to write 800, you don't consider it a failure. You consider it a victory. You have met 85% of your goal. You have kept the chain. You have been consistent. This flexibility protects you from burnout and the all-or-nothing cycle, and in the long run, allows you to achieve much more. Tactic 3. The deliberate pause. Sometimes, the most powerful act of will is to do nothing at all. When you face a situation of overwhelming complexity, a decision where you don't see a clear path, or an obstacle that seems insurmountable, the instinct of the iron will is frenetic action. It's trying to force a solution. It's activity for activity's sake. The will of steel has the courage to take a deliberate pause. It is the ability to consciously withdraw from the battlefield to gain perspective. This pause is not procrastination. It is an active strategy. It communicates to your subconscious mind, I have reached the limit of my logical capacity. Now I hand the problem over to you. I trust you to find a creative solution. By taking a walk, taking a shower, sleeping, or simply focusing on something else, you allow your deeper mind, with its immense parallel processing capacity, to work on the problem in the background. Often the solution then appears as a flash of intuition, a synchronicity, an idea that comes out of nowhere. The deliberate pause is the art of knowing when to stop rowing and simply let the current show you the way. Practice, training the flexibility of your will. Exercise. 1. The plan A, B, and C. Rigidity is born from the fear that our only plan will fail. Flexibility is born from the confidence of having alternatives. Choose your most important goal at this moment. Spend an hour outlining your plan A, your main and most obvious strategy to achieve it. Now spend another hour on a counterintuitive task. Assume that plan A will fail completely. What would be your plan B? What completely different route could you take to reach the same destination? And finally, imagine that plan B also fails. What is your plan C, your strangest and most creative option? This exercise does 3 things. It drastically reduces your fear of failure because you realize you have multiple paths. It forces you to think more creatively and strategically, and it mentally prepares you to pivot if necessary. Exercise 2, the scheduled chaos day. Our routines and systems are powerful, but they can also become cages that make us rigid. Once a month, schedule a chaos day. On this day, your goal is to deliberately break as many of your small routines as possible. Take a completely different route to work. Eat something you've never tried. Talk to a stranger, work in a cafe instead of your office, read a book from a genre you normally hate. This exercise is like a stretching session for your will. It takes you out of your automatic patterns, forces you to be conscious and adaptable, and teaches you that you can thrive perfectly well outside of your comfort zone. Exercise 3, the lessons from the obstacle journal. The next time you encounter a significant obstacle, one that frustrates and blocks you, before trying to overcome it, pause. Open your journal and answer this question. If this obstacle were not an enemy but a teacher in disguise, what crucial lesson would it be trying to teach me about my strategy, my approach, or my own rigidity? This simple act of reframing transforms the obstacle from an adversary into an ally. It forces you to look for the wisdom in the resistance, to see the feedback that reality is offering you. It is the first step from fighting against the wall to looking for the door. The strongest will is not the one that never bends, but the one that knows when to bend so as not to break. It is the one that combines the unwavering determination of a mountain with the infinite adaptability of a river. The true mastery of the will is not found in rigid control, but in an elegant and wise dance between your immovable intention and the ever-changing reality. Chapter 10. The Final Mastery, From Will to Habit. Think of a master of any discipline. A concert pianist does not think about where to place each finger to play a Beethoven sonata. Their fingers dance on the keys with a fluency that seems supernatural. A race car driver does not consciously decide every turn of the steering wheel in a corner at 300 kilometers per hour. Their body and the car are one. A master carpenter does not force the wood. They feel it, understand it, and shape it with an ease that seems instinctive. In each case, what was once an act of incredibly focused and conscious will has become, through thousands of hours of practice, something much more powerful, a deeply ingrained habit. The action has been transferred from the effortful conscious captain to the incredibly efficient and automatic engine room of the subconscious. This is the final mastery. It is not having an infinitely strong will to fight every battle. It is becoming so wise and so skilled that the daily battles simply disappear. It is moving from conscious competence, where you have to think about every step, to unconscious competence, where excellence becomes your second nature. The goal of this journey is not to become a lifelong soldier of the will. It is to use the will as the scaffolding to build the magnificent edifice of your habits. And once the building is constructed, the scaffolding can be removed. To achieve this transition, we must understand the anatomy of a habit. A habit is not just an action we repeat. It is a neurological loop that our brain creates to save energy. This loop, as described by author Charles Duhigg, consists of three parts: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is the trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and execute a habit. It can be a time of day, a place, an emotional state, or the action that immediately precedes it. Seeing the coffee maker in the morning is a cue. Feeling stressed is a cue. The routine is the action itself, whether physical, mental, or emotional. It is the act of making coffee, of picking up the phone, of eating the cookie. And the reward is what tells your brain that this particular loop is worth remembering and repeating in the future. It is the pleasant sensation of the first sip of coffee, the momentary distraction of social media, the sugar rush from the cookie. Over time, this loop becomes so strong that a fourth element is created: the craving. Your brain begins to anticipate the reward as soon as it sees the cue, and this craving is the force that drives the habit automatically, without your conscious will having to intervene. This whole process is neutral. The brain uses the same mechanism to build the habit of exercising as it does to build the habit of smoking. It does not judge. It simply seeks efficiency. Our task as the architects of ourselves is to use this mechanism deliberately. It is to consciously choose the habits we want to install and design a loop that guarantees their success. It is the final act of taking control of our own programming. From intention to habit, the automation process. Step 1. Choose your keystone habit. Do not try to change everything at once. Choose a single habit that, if you were to install it in your life, would create a positive domino effect in all other areas. This is known as a keystone habit. For many people, daily exercise is a keystone habit. When you exercise, you not only improve your health, you also sleep better, have less stress, eat healthier, and are more productive. For others, it might be daily meditation, which improves focus and patience. Or it could be a morning routine, which sets a positive tone for the entire day. Choose a single keystone habit to focus on for the next 2 months. Step 2. Design the perfect loop. Now use the loop formula to design your habit in a way that makes it almost impossible to fail. The cue. Make it obvious and unavoidable. Don't say, "I'll exercise in the morning." Be specific. The cue should be, "When I turn off my alarm clock." The routine. Make it ridiculously small at first. The 2-minute rule. Your routine is not run 5 kilometers. Your routine is, "I will put on my gym clothes and sneakers." That's it. It is an act so simple that your will cannot find an excuse not to do it. The reward. It must be immediate and satisfying. It cannot be the long-term reward of being in shape. It has to be something you enjoy right after the routine. For example, "And afterward, I will enjoy my favorite cup of coffee while listening to my favorite podcast for 15 minutes. Your complete loop would be, "When I turn off my alarm, cue, I will put on my gym clothes, routine, so I can enjoy my coffee and my podcast, reward." Step 3. The willpower period, the construction. Now comes the work. For the first 30, 60, 90 days, executing this loop will require your conscious will. This is the construction period. This is where you use the muscle you have trained. Every day you complete the loop, you are casting a vote in favor of your new identity. You are digging a new neural groove. Step 4. The inflection point, the automation. And then, one day, it will happen. You will wake up, and before your conscious mind has time to debate, you will find yourself with your sneakers on. The craving for the reward, the coffee and the podcast, will have become stronger than the resistance to the routine. At that moment, you have crossed the threshold. The habit is no longer something you do. It is something you are. The responsibility has been transferred from the effortful, conscious captain to the efficient autopilot of the subconscious. Your will is now free for the next great challenge. Practice. The architecture of your new self. Exercise. 1. The design of your 66-day keystone habit. Studies from University College London suggest that it takes, on average, 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. Let's use that time frame. Choose your keystone habit. What is the one habit that would have the greatest positive impact on your life right now? Design your loop. Write down in your journal your loop of cue, routine, starting tiny, and reward. Create your tracker. Print or draw a simple calendar with 66 boxes. Stick it on the wall. Every day you complete your routine, draw a big X. Your only mission for the next 66 days is not to break the chain. Exercise 2. The identity review. A habit is not fully consolidated until it becomes part of your identity. During your 66-day challenge, use your journal to rewrite your own story. Don't write, "I meditated today." Write, "Today I cultivated my inner peace because I am a serene person." Don't write, "I wrote 500 words today." Write, "Today I made progress on my work because I am a writer." Don't write, "I went to the gym today." Write, "Today I honored my body because I am an athlete." Every time you perform the habit, you are obtaining proof. Use that proof to consciously build a new belief about who you are. Because when a habit becomes part of your identity, the internal struggle disappears forever. You no longer need willpower to be who you are. We have reached the end of our training. We have traveled from understanding the will as a muscle to the art of discipline as a system, and finally, to the mastery of habit as an identity. The will is not an end in itself. It is a transitional tool. It is the scaffolding you use to build the magnificent edifice of your habits. Once the building is constructed, once you have become the person you aspire to be, the scaffolding can be removed and the structure stands on its own, strong and resilient. Final mastery is not found in having an infinitely strong will. It is found in becoming so wise in the design of your life that you rarely need to use it anymore. You have reached a state of freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of your impulses. Freedom from the exhausting battle against yourself. And the freedom to be able to use your precious conscious energy not for the struggle, but for what really matters. To create, to connect, to lead, and to fully enjoy the life you have deliberately built. Our journey began adrift on the river of life, often feeling like victims of its unpredictable currents. We started from the belief that the will was a brute force, an exhausting struggle reserved for a select few heroes. And along this path, we have transformed that belief. We have discovered that the will is a muscle that can be trained, an energy that can be managed, and a steel that can be made flexible. We have learned that the secret lies not in the strength of the soldier who fights every battle, but in the wisdom of the architect who designs an environment where victory is inevitable. We have moved from brute force to strategy, from struggle to systems, and finally, from conscious will to the silent power of habit. The final paradox is this. The goal of mastering the will is to free yourself from the need to use it. True discipline does not lead to a life of rigidity and restriction, but to a life of freedom. Freedom from your own impulses. Freedom from the tyranny of instant gratification. Freedom from the paralysis of doubt. It is the freedom to be able to use your conscious energy and your attention, not to fight with yourself, but to create, to connect, and to live fully. The true will is not a cage of discipline, but the key that opens all the doors. It is the power to deliberately choose your thoughts, your actions, and ultimately, the person you become. Your journey does not end with these words. It begins with your next choice. Look at the keystone habit you designed in the last chapter. The next time its cue appears, tomorrow morning, at your next meal, in your next work session, that is your moment. It is not a test. It is an opportunity to cast a vote in favor of the person you have decided to be. You are not a leaf carried by the wind. You are the architect of your destiny. If this journey to forge your inner power has resonated with you, we invite you to continue this exploration by subscribing to our channel, Path of Knowledge. A like on this video is the signal that tells us this content has strengthened you, and if you believe this message can be the rudder someone else needs, we encourage you to share it. Thank you for your time and for the courageous decision to become the master of your own will. See you next time.